most people have an arc and a narrative that's like, okay, unsung hero, you're on the ascension, you get to the mountaintop, and then your detractors start trying to knock you down. He went from riding up to the mountaintop to being on the other side of that hill, and just people without like that apex of, oh, this is the best player, oh, we love his story. And I think that he doesn't understand that the decision that he made fractured the landscape of the NBA and tilted the competitive balance so far that it made basketball uninteresting because of how good that team was.
Let me put you on game.
I wanted to talk about KD because I was thinking about it when I was watching the interview, and Kevin Durant, I think our listeners know, I think everyone knows, but I don't even think we talk about it enough, is possibly the most unguardable player in NBA history. Like when they ask NBA players who's the toughest player to guard, 90% of them say KD.
Yeah.
Like it's not even really a competition because of how tall he is, because he has better skills than like a lot of guards. His ability to shoot the basketball, he's a two-way player. His ability to facilitate is underrated. Like he's just that guy. When he's on, or when he's even average, he's unstoppable. So it's like, and he's been that way since what, 2011 or earlier? Like he's been that guy for a long time. He's been that guy for at least the past decade. So I remember I think we were at Stony and I tried to tell dudes that he was better than Melo and they tripped out. But he's been good for that long. He's been that dude since at least like 2011. So with him being as dominant and as good as he is, like in terms of talent, he's a top 10 talent all time. Like, I don't think there's any question about that. But like you said, the way that we talk about him isn't that. We talk about KD for the most part like he's just like an Anthony Davis type like level player, as great as AD is, but like he's a few steps above that. He's Bron level in terms of his ability, but we talk about him as just like a regular superstar, as opposed to him being what he is, which is a one of one. So I wanted to get into that and talk about like, why do you think that is? Because I was before I add on further to my question, I also noticed like, you know how there's stands, there's hives in terms of like people will have, there's a bunch of people that love Kyrie. There's a bunch of people that hate Bron, but there's also a bunch of people that love Bron. There's Kobe stands. There's, Jordan stands, obviously. And back in the day, Magic, Bird, like there's all of these players that have these people that will cape for them and they're super fans. But I noticed with KD, like he doesn't really have that. So to round it all out, like what do you think it is about Kevin Durant or his career that leads to him not getting the love that a lot of other players get?
I think Durant, this is actually a multi-dimensional question. I would say that KD was pretty beloved and was a fan favorite before he went to the Warriors, and people kind of saw him in the same light as they saw like a Charles Barkley or Carmelo Anthony, like super talented, great scorer, amazing, just didn't really get a chance to win or be on a team that really showcased all of his best skills. But he's so good that you just put him in the right situation and it's going to be a wrap. But I think also the market of playing in OKC and maybe just not great marketing, and his overall game didn't lend itself to be the most exciting, because he was a slasher, or he is a slasher, and he gets nice dunks, but he's so tall that it's not as visually thrilling as it is for like a LeBron or like a Dwayne Wade. You think about them and their star power. Dwayne Wade is the Flash. He was hype. He was in Miami, South Beach. So there was an image about him that made him very endearing and that made people like fall in love with him. Same thing with the LeBron. Melo, as much as I enjoyed Melo and I loved him as a fan, I really loved him when he came to New York. And when he
Yeah.
wasn't in New York, the market placed so much into it. And LeBron was the chosen one. He was going to be the greatest since high school. So there was already a huge machine behind pushing him to the forefront of our consciousness. And KD kind of fell into that secondary tier that he talks about a lot. Like, I'm tired of being second. And so I think that's kind of the background of it. But once he decided to go from unsung hero to full villain, most people have an arc and a narrative that's like, okay, unsung hero, you're on the ascension, you get to the mountaintop, and then your detractors start trying to knock you down. He went from riding up to the mountaintop to being on the other side of that hill, and just people without like that apex of, oh, this is the best player, oh, we love his story. He didn't have that Giannis moment of overcoming, and now Giannis can be a villain if he wants, and his career has a whole arc. Jordan had that same thing too. The ascension, the top, then the controversy that brings you down to some degree. Durant really just went from hero, like rising hero to super villain. And I think that people, like, he doesn't understand that the decision that he made fractured the landscape of the NBA and tilted the competitive balance so far that it made basketball uninteresting because of how good that team was. And in theory, it was really interesting to watch them. And like he said, it was beautiful basketball. Their talent, their game was undeniable. It was amazing. But we like narratives because we don't know what the end will be. It's you're writing the story as it goes. You like to see a little bit of adversity, but when you stack the chips like that in your favor and you create no adversity, so much so to the fact that the defending champions barely got a gentleman's sweep out of that series, breaking offensive records while taking big fat L's because the team was so good. Like that, you had a healthy Kyrie, a healthy LeBron, a healthy Kevin Love, enough role players to round out a championship level team that destroyed the East, and they could not touch the Warriors that year.
Yeah.
And I remember being in Los Angeles at that time and seeing that shot that KD pulled up on LeBron at the 3-point line with, and you're just like, okay. Yeah.
Right.
They always
we knew this
that.
was going to happen. Yeah.
Even in this close competitive game, they have that ace up their sleeve because Kevin Durant has not really broken a sweat. He didn't look like he did in Game 7 against Giannis this year. He looked fresh when he took that shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that the team was just so outrageously talented that it made it hard to want to root for them, to want to stand for them. And, he ultimately has to live with that. And he seems to be doing fine because he has that effort mentality. But that only gets you so far when you're just all concerned with one thing and you don't think about the narrative in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. I don't know if he realized the macro level effect that the move would have on the NBA. I think he really probably honestly just wanted to hoop. And he probably looked at the way, because if you think about that OKC team, he said it multiple times that they had a lot of athletes, but they didn't have a lot of guys that he felt were on his level in terms of skill. Like he felt like it was just him and Russ against the world. So I think that maybe he saw it the way that Golden State played over the course of the season. And I'm sure, especially during that playoff series, and he was probably enamored by that. And maybe he's not concerned with the media narrative or the narratives of old in terms of like Jordan, overcoming the Pistons. Maybe he was just like, maybe he should have joined them dudes. Like, maybe that's just how he rolls. And I think that frustrates so many of us because, you brought up like the hero part of it. And I was watching a video with, by The Ringer, J. Cal Mann. He brought up a really good point. And he was saying how he thought that KD was like Anakin Skywalker, how he had this journey that we were expecting, where he was gonna be this great Jedi, and he was gonna be this great hero, and he chose this completely different path. and of course he becomes one of the greatest and most powerful villains in movie history, but that's not what we wanted for him. So I think that we as fans wanted this thing for KD. We wanted him to stay in Oklahoma City. We wanted him to uh, overcome all of these obstacles and fight the good fight and then beat the Warriors the next year or whatever the story was. And he just said, "No, I'm going to do my own thing." And we were just like, well, what? Like we were just astounded by his ability to ultimately make his own decisions because he's an adult, you know? So like we can't get too wrapped up in him making his own decisions, because like we may care about the narrative, we may care about the hero's journey, we may care about overcoming adversity and all these other things, but like it's not his responsibility to care about what we care about, you know? And it took me a long time to realize that, because me as a fan, like I was just like, man, I don't get it. Like I don't understand it. Like I still think personally that I don't know if I would make that move, but I'm not him. And clearly, like you said, he's happy. It worked out for him in the best way that it possibly could. They might have three-peated if they probably would have three-peated if he was healthy, because when he came back in that game before he tore his Achilles, he was lighting them up. So yeah, but yeah, I think that's, to think back to the question that I asked you about why KD isn't viewed that way. I think that's probably why. I think because he kind of shunned the destiny that we wanted for him as fans,
Right.
because I think he did that. He definitely had a bunch of people that were caping for him in OKC, but I think once he went to the Warriors, all of that kind of went away. But a guy like KD that only cares about hoop, he might not care about how loved he is generally. Like once he retires, as of right now, and he'll probably get another one. He got 2 chips, maybe more on the way, because that Nets team is stacked. But yeah, and he's got multiple scoring titles. He's got one of the most impressive basketball reference pages in NBA history, arguably the most impressive, because buckets. But yeah, I think he ultimately won. But I mean, us as fans, we have our mixed feelings, but they probably don't matter.
Yeah. And it was really enlightening to hear him even discuss how, when it comes to his future progeny, that if he eventually has kids, that he doesn't want them to grow up knowing the greatness of his skill or who he is. He wants them to just grow up as normal kids, and he wants to leave his legacy on the basketball floor and in the minds of basketball fans, and he doesn't want to put that weight on someone else to try to cape for, because it's not fair. And that just shows me like he's someone that really knows what's important to him, and that's the most that you can really hope for, to be confident, to be happy enough, to be satisfied enough in your life that you know exactly what you want and you go out and get it.
Yeah.
That most of us dream of doing that, having the audacity, the gall to actually go for your dreams and to make it happen,
Yeah, and
to
to
make
care
the
about the work.
sacrifices. Yeah.
Like I said, I admire the way that he views life. Like he really just cares about his craft. Like he can care less about the glitz and the glam, the jewelry, the flash and the money. Like he said, like he just really cares about being the best basketball player that he can be. And I think he really means that. A lot of players say that, but he really means that. And I think that, as much as we as fans love to put ourselves in players' shoes and say, well, we would have did if we were them. I think that, like, personally, to be to contradict myself, I would probably live my life that way if I had what KD had, in terms of just caring about my craft, because you can kind of get lost in a lot of the glitz and the glam sometimes. But like if you really just care about what you're doing and being good at that, like that shows, and that kind of puts you ahead of everyone else. It's like the Locks versus Dipset versus, like, the Locks really cared about their craft and they were really dialed into what they were doing, and it showed, versus like a Dipset where it was just about the flash and the hits. There's something special about authenticity and about really dialing in and giving your all to whatever you decide to dedicate your life to. So shout out to KD.